I was like, I can't hear anything. Hi, welcome. Welcome, everyone. My name is Rebecca Rosado. I'm here with Front and Center, Rainier Avenue Radio at the wonderful and historic Columbia City Theater. This is our third day of a week-long event series honoring Mother Earth. We have had amazing conversations throughout the week. We've had Na'a Ilahi here. We've had Nurturing Roots. We've had Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle. And we have so much more to bring you. Tonight, we are super excited because we're welcoming youth from all across Washington, and they are taking over. They are going to lift up their voice and talk about whatever is on their mind. So I'm super excited about tonight, but I'm equally excited about my conversation today. Right now, I have the honor of sitting down with a conversation with Yalonda Sinde from Global African Initiative. And I just want to say welcome, 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 Yalonda. I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the audience and talk a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Great. Hello, and thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to speak to folks today. I am Yalonda Sinde, and I'm a founding member of the Global African Community Initiative.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for taking time out today. And I know, Yolanda, you've been pretty busy, and you have a long history in Seattle working on environmental justice, amongst other things. You want to tell me where you started and how you got
Sure.
here?
Thank you. Some people might know me from in the early 90s up to about 2006 when I was with the Community Coalition for Environmental Justice, was a founding board member, and then became their ED for about 13 years. In that time, I did a lot of work around environmental justice issues in King County, also in the region and the nation. Our organization was grassroots, people color-led group that worked on mainly air pollution. How I got involved is some volunteers came to my door with flyers and talked about how we had high asthma rates in my neighborhood, which is something I was aware of. So I started going to meetings to learn about the air quality, what I could do about it, and really got inspired by the fact that environmentalism wasn't just a white movement, that environmental justice was people of color leading a movement. And so I was really inspired by that, because previously I just thought, environmental issues were more mainstream issues. So started organizing, being trained in doing organizing, nonviolent protests, doing research on polluters. And we had major victories. We shut down a medical waste incinerator at VA Hospital. We actually were instrumental in getting an Environmental Justice Act passed. We had various victories with preserving low-income housing, and all of it was behind really just direct action and really focused organizing. So I'm really proud of that legacy. People may have heard of Got Green, and Got Green was basically the evolution of CCEJ. So when we disbanded around 2008 or so, Got Green utilized our 501c3 to revive the group and created a new organization. So really proud of that work continues. But I'm really proud of that work. A lot of people did the work with me. I was just considered, a leader, but definitely not the only leader. Youth were a big part of our work, and were at the forefront of our movement for environmental justice in the region. So super proud of that. Just so many things to to showcase and highlight, but the importance of coalition building was why we were successful across, issues, because you can't separate environmental justice from social justice, from economic justice, racial justice. So everything was intertwined, and so we had all kind of multi-issue organizations working together, and that was the beauty of the work we did back then.
Yeah,
So.
collaboration is so important, and it sounds like you've been collaborating since the beginning. I want to go back to a little bit right at the beginning. You were talking about you. It started with a flyer. It started with somebody at your door bringing attention to what was going on in your community, and that it wasn't just the white community working on environmental issues. How important is it for people of color to start working in and to work on environmental issues?
That's a great question, Rebecca, because we're the most impacted by environmental hazards. People of color more likely live in substandard housing, work jobs where they're exposed to hazardous chemicals, live in a neighborhood where they have poor air quality, live in a neighborhood where they don't have drinking water. Look what's going on in the Midwest with, with communities not even having drinking water, a basic, human
Mhm.
need. And when you look across the board by race, and in some cases by class, you will see that across the board, people of color are disproportionately impacted. So that's something that definitely why we need to be the forefront of a movement is because we're
Mhm.
impacted by the problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you started your work in the Seattle area, how did you come from the Got Green, from where you were to what you're doing now? Tell us a little bit about the Global African Community Initiative.
Oh, great. So since leaving CCJ, I've served mainly an advisory role. Some people had hailed me as like the mother of the Northwest movement, and I'm really humble, like consider myself a mother of a movement because I'm honored that people say that, but I'm humbled in that I know that I didn't do anything by myself. I just took, you know, a lead position just to, get things done, but I definitely didn't, don't take credit for everything, but there are people who really feel I did carry a lot and want to respect me for that, and I appreciate that. But I definitely want to acknowledge all the youth and all the other people that were working right alongside me during that time. So what I did is I've served mainly as on boards. When you
Mhm.
have that kind of experience, as an organizer, and then like a nonprofit leader, people are like, whoa, teach us stuff, and I'm happy to do that, to share the knowledge, and lessons learned, things I wish someone had taught
Mhm.
me that I didn't learn the hard way. So um, I've been in advisory boards. And so around 2020, I got approached by some folks. I go back and forth to Kenya sometime, and I saw a lot of environmental issues, poverty issues, and then learned that Seattle and Mombasa are sister cities.
Mhm.
So I contacted the sister city representative in Seattle, and she was telling me some of the issues they were working on. I said, well, hey, I have connections there. And then, so my connections and I started Global African Community Initiative as a way to bridge like a gap between the two cities, but also to bring together people in the diaspora to talk about how we can build unity. And there are a lot of groups doing great work that have been around a long time. Our what makes us unique is that our platform is focused on health, and also environment. So one of our main initiatives is the youth. So our two locations are in Mombasa, Kenya, and Seattle, Washington. I live in Seattle. And then we have a board of directors where two people are in Mombasa, Kenya. One of the issues in Seattle that we were seeing was a lot of the recent immigrants and people of
Mhm.
African descent were being exposed to a lot of hazardous chemicals on low wage jobs like working in hotels. And so we were doing some outreach and education around, hey, demanding safer cleaning products to clean with because you're being exposed to chemicals. So that's one of the things that we're working on in Seattle is education around hazardous chemicals exposure in the community and on the job in the home. In Mombasa, the youth don't really have a lot of organizations. There's just really nothing for them to do. So our health initiative focuses on sports and supporting youth in playing, team sports. It brings the community together. It helps the kids, learn healthy habits, physical exercise. And then we talk about nutrition. So we also have a feeding program. We raise money every year to just have, at least if we can provide a meal or two a week, it really helps a lot of family that doesn't have the income to have well-rounded meals. We'd like to do more, but we're never been able to raise enough to really do a meal every day. So it's usually if when we do have the funding, like once a week meals.
Mhm.
So the health is around poverty, addressing poverty by providing basic needs. One of the biggest issues here in Mombasa is climate change. Um, Mombasa sits at sea level, and so the weather is pretty much is very extreme. So there's long periods of drought, and then like with spurts of flooding rain. It's like one extreme to the other. And so it's a great opportunity to educate people about why Mombasa is like that, to see, how does global change, you know, why does it, how does it cause these problems? So we see that's one of the things that why we joined Front and Center is that we thought it would be great to learn from folks working on this in Seattle and see how we can collaborate, in Seattle, work on that issue and also in Mombasa.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you get that feedback about climate change and through your programs? I know that with Front and Center, I know you've mentioned collaboration, and you've mentioned joining conversations and joining a coalition as a Front and Center to work with people who are already working on these topics, um, which is important. I in the time that I've known you, you've spoken multiple times about just community and sharing information and the importance of shared knowledge. And not only with people who are working on it, but people who are just living through it. And so, how do you share that knowledge through your current programs? And I have a second part to that question is how
So
would you
we
like to share that knowledge?
Well, those are great questions. I love those questions. I need help with both those questions. So a lot of it culturally, gatherings. I know that COVID really impacted the way we communicate. We weren't able to get together with people like we
Mhm.
have been. We're starting to now get back out and do because the best outreach is face to face. You know, go door to door, just like how I became involved with the environmental justice movement. Is someone came to my door and invited me to a meeting with a flyer that looked interesting, and I thought, oh, let me check it out. But right now, social media is our biggest
Mhm.
platform in terms of getting the word out. So we have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter page, a web page, so just getting advice. None of us are really that tech savvy in terms of how to really like monopolize on that. Other than posting things, we don't really utilize it to the fullest extent. So that would be how I'd like to, or we would like to improve that, is to really use social media to reach more people, because we can't always do face-to-face outreach like we have been. But like right now, it's just kind of like have an event or go to a place that people are gathering and give flyers out, but people aren't gathering still as much as they used to. So that's, they're kind of coming back out, but not like before. People are still kind of not really going to big events. So we need to really utilize technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's changed a little bit, right? So it's from going door to door and meeting in person, and as you said, the people aren't doing that as much, right? So using
Hmm.
technology is definitely important, just to keep that information and that shared knowledge going. What do you think when you use that technology and when you use the lessons that you've learned from the past when working on environmental justice, what do you think is the most important, like if you only had 2 seconds with someone, what is the most important thing that you want to get across, not only for the communities that you serve in Kenya but also the communities that you serve in Seattle? What is your 2 minute just speech for people?
That's a powerful question.
I
These are really
mean, it
good.
puts you on the spot.
This is
Maybe.
good. That's powerful. Like 2 minutes, you have like an elevator speech, really.
Right, right.
Um, wow. I like that's deep.
You can come back to that one though, if you need a
We have
little
to think
time,
about
because
it a
I
little
did.
bit.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'll give you how about we talk about something a little bit less, but we will be coming back to that, so keep
Okay,
that in mind. We will
I'll be
be coming
ready.
back to it. But let's talk about something that is a little bit easier to answer. What can people do to help Global African Community Initiative? What can people do to just stay involved with you and what you are doing now?
Volunteer, help us if you have experience with marketing. Give us advice on how to really utilize social media to get the word out about the issues we work on. We welcome membership. We were thinking of collaborating to have a virtual African community conference um, sometime probably spring of next year. It'll take us that much time to raise funds. So we'd love ideas around that. We think it'd be a really good opportunity to network and build relationships, hear about other issues that other African groups are working on, African American groups throughout the diaspora are working on. So, just any expertise or advice or links, information you want to share that lessons you've learned in different ways that you've done things, we welcome that. Donations on our website. We accept donations. Like I said, we raise money for the feeding program,
Mhm.
for the youth sports, for their equipment and uniforms and coaching, and the park rental space. So that's kind of it. Just volunteering, sharing info, become a member, donate. Those are the biggest ways to help us.
All right, all right. I know volunteering is very important. We have a lot of volunteer opportunities throughout our membership, including with you all, and I think that is. We're seeing more and more calls out for volunteering. And in your history of working in Seattle around environmental justice, what have you seen change throughout the volunteering, people volunteering aside from COVID, right? We know that, it's a little bit harder to volunteer, but what do you see is happening right now from the time that you were out there and doing a lot of direct action?
That's great because I often talk about how it's there's less people and I don't see as many youth as before. And I think from what I can tell and what people are talking about is a lot of folks are in survival mode. And so, the cost of living is just so high right now. And so people, are trying to make ends meet, may not have the bandwidth to be volunteering very
Mhm,
much. So you're
mm,
not going to really get, more people of color involved when we're struggling. And our thing is any little thing you can do, even if you just share our link, we appreciate it. Just, posting on your own Facebook page or your own social media pages or any article or things that we post or events. We understand that times are tough and that
mhm,
affects volunteerism.
mhm. Yeah, you've talked about a couple of different things. So you've talked about direct action, but you've also talked about a little bit of policy work, right? And can you tell us a little bit about why policy, getting involved and understanding what's going on in the world of policy, right, and advocacy, how why that's important for communities of color as well as direct action?
In our experience, it's been a real power building exercise. Policy change in educating people about how politics works, how decision making works in a government. That's a really powerful skill to have. And you have to have some level of faith, in your own power and the ability to make change through policy. Because some people are pretty cynical, and rightly so. They feel like, you do all that, but really, what changes? But we've seen tremendous change. Like, for example, the policy work Green did around the sweet beverage tax.
Hmm.
I mean, that was a win that got resources to the community by taxing, uh, sweet beverages and using that money to help the community work on environmental issues. So there's so many examples of policy change that have changed lives and improved our communities. And so I think it's a great power building and base building exercise to work on policy. I think it's crucial in organizing to have people skilled in doing that work, lobbying, educating policymakers, doing demonstrations at, in the state capitol. Um, those all those things help you build a cohesive movement, give people hope that they can make change, and give them skills that they need to make change. I think it's a very, very powerful tool.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a balance, right? Um,
Right.
where would people start? I mean, we talk about getting involved, right? We talk about shared knowledge and community, and where do people start with that conversation of climate change in the community? Where do you think that is the good place to start to educate themselves?
I think getting involved in organizations and just, sometimes just listening, going to things, reading the information that they put on in their newsletters. If you can, attend their virtual meetings and just listen. I believe in, when you first start something, just really absorbing the information and seeing where you can fit in. I think that's one of the most powerful things you can do is just join.
Hmm.
This is, like I said, why we joined with Front and Center, because we saw all these great organizations that were part of it. And we're like, this is a great way for us to jump in and support the work of all these groups, get support for the work we're doing. We can't do this by ourselves.
Hmm.
This is the problems are bigger than us, and so it's going to take all of us to solve these problems. So that's why it's so, to me, powerful to join coalitions and to work with other like-minded organizations and build momentum and build a base and build a movement. That's really how you do it. You got to do it cross issue and
Hmm.
organization.
Yeah, there's definitely a power in community, right? There is a very big sense, a very big comfort, right, when you are going into something and tackling something in with a community. So I know that we are so happy to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out today to just stop and have this conversation. I know I'm giving you a couple of curveballs with my questions here, but that's all right. I think that
I love it.
you got it. You got
It's
it.
so good.
It's always good. It's always good.
Yeah,
You
makes me
know,
think. Keep me
I
on
like
my
to
feet,
learn.
Rebecca.
That's what I'm here for, to keep you on your feet. I got
Love it.
you. I just want to talk about this week. We have had so many powerful people that have talked about community and that have talked about just the accountability of self, right? And the community and the responsibility that we all have to each other and the earth. And I think that with all of this, we have at the Columbia City Theater all week. We've had different conversations and events. Tonight, the youth one, and I know you mentioned youth. We are having the youth of all over. We have youth coming from Bremerton and Tacoma, all over Washington, to have these conversations. What is it that the youth that you see that you work with, what is it that you see that they're saying to you about climate change?
They want to learn more about what we can do about it because it seems daunting. We were talking to youth at the last tournament we did. They're like, well, what can we do about it? It just seems like there's nothing we can do, that we've already ruined the environment. And so there's no turning back. So I think a lot of education on what can be done, like, the fact that there aren't very many trees. Planting trees is one way to help, the environment. So I think more education on what we can actually do, it gives people hope because they feel like, they hear the problem all the time.
Mhm.
We're talking about the issue, but we're not talking. We need to talk to them more about what they can do. That's
Mhm.
the part we're working on. Like, what are things that young people can do?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that there's a lot of young people that want to do things, and there's a lot of
Hmm.
I think that there's a lot of things that we can learn from what they are doing right now, taking kind of the matter into their own hands and organizing. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of learning out there, so I'm pretty excited about that.
me
Um,
too.
and then when we talk about the youth, the changes, you talk about health, right? And, their comments on climate change, but a lot of your focus is on health, right? And about how the changes in the health and how we need to look out for the health of our communities. Talk a little bit about that, about what they're saying to you, not only youth, but just the people, your communities that you're serving are talking about how they can create a healthier environment for themselves.
That's a good question. I think what we're hearing is the biggest issue is not having enough to eat well,
Mhm.
and food security being a big problem.
Mhm.
And because you would think that, in Africa, that, food would be plentiful because the sun's always out, that, there'd be a lot of farmers, but they have a lot of food that's imported. It's a big problem to have a farm. The way that the system works here, it's not easy to be a farmer. It's expensive, and they don't have subsidies like they do in the United States. So if you have a bad crop, you go under. There's no saving you. There's no bailout. There's no loans. There's nothing. So there's not as many people interested in farming that can grow food. So they have a lot of food imported, which drives the price up. So you're in a developing country, living in poverty, and you're paying, over the top for tomatoes that you could have grown yourself, but you can't grow yourself because soil condition, for you to get the soil in a fertile state, is an investment. And you don't get any government aid to make that investment. So food security in the United States as well, we're seeing food shortages.
Mhm.
So encouraging community gardens as a way to get some fresh produce, farmers markets. One of the things that we do, I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot to mention how we also support and collaborate around Black farmers. There are some Black farmers in King County that are needing assistance with getting their food to markets, to farmers markets and to grocery stores, so they can continue to grow food and make a profit to grow food. So that's a big issue all over the place, everywhere, Mombasa, Seattle, the globe. And so one of the things that we're doing is I actually help an organization that has actually several farms, help them raise money to, they have youth that actually learn how to grow food, and helping them raise money for their farms so that they can, because distribution is the biggest cost, getting out there and getting markets to let you set up a stand or to sell at their market. That's their biggest hurdle. As you know, people don't tend to buy from a Black farmer. They tend to buy from the bigger chain, and so they're competing with that, even though they have high quality food. So that is a big issue. There's just so many, but focusing on health, healthy food access, being able to get fresh produce in particular, is something that helps our health.
Yeah, and I think that I thank you for allowing us to kind of take a peek into the comparisons, right, of the different issues and the different topics of health in both your work in Kenya and your work here in Seattle. We do have a lot of we had Nurturing Roots on earlier, and we do have Nurturing Roots coming back on Friday to do a conversation. We also have a Black Farmer segment. Happening tomorrow. So, thank you for bringing that up because we will be able to learn a little bit more about what that is like, and especially in King County here. I do know that we are going to take a commercial break coming up soon. So, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on this week and who I'm with. I'm with Yalonda Sinde with Global African Community Initiative. I am Rebecca Rosado with Front and Center, and we are so happy to have you here. We have a week long programming here with Earth Deserves More Than a Day. Today, we will have at 1 p.m. on the front lines fighting nuclear. It's a podcast. Please tune in. At 3 p.m., we have Saving Our Forests with Mason County Climate Justice. That's a pretty exciting interview that will be online, and you can catch our whole schedule at frontandcenter.org or calltoconscious.com. We also have a very, very special event. Yolanda has been talking throughout this interview about the importance of youth action and youth participation. And our youth radio takeover tonight at Columbia City Theater. All are welcomed, but remember, this is a youth event. The youth will be speaking. So if you are an adult and you want to come by, you will be limited on your microphone. You will not be able to speak because this is all for them. We are just here to listen and learn from the people that will be taking over, and that is the youth. So it's at 5 o'clock tonight at Columbia City Theater, and we are with Rainier Avenue Radio. I'm so excited. Thank you, Yolanda, for taking the time out today. I really am very excited. Um, this conversation just to hear kind of about your history here in Seattle and the importance of just us banning, this coalition, right? You've talked multiple times about just community. It takes a village. It is a community and joining together and sharing our knowledge. And I think that that's what it's about. We talked a little bit in this interview about like policy change and why that's important. And it's a balance. It's a balance, and not anybody can get you even started, right? With a flyer. Right. And the first step is just to learn. The first step is to take a minute and learn about what's going on in your neighborhood and your city, and even outside, all the way over to Kenya and other places. So, why don't we talk a little bit? And we're going to pause a minute and we're going to talk a little bit about the work in Kenya and how you are learning, the people in Seattle are learning from the people in Kenya, and how you continue that line of communication.
So one of the things that we're mainly working on is really kind of reviving or re-energizing the relationship between Seattle and Mombasa, since we're sister cities.
Mhm.
Sister cities it's been around for a long time, where certain cities will adopt another city and they communicate and do projects together. And so the coordinator of Sister City, Seattle Mombasa, here in Seattle, and I've been having conversations on what can we do to support each other to get more information about each city. And one of the connections we have is they're both port cities. And so, trade and travel, that kind of thing, tourism, those are big industries in port cities because of
Mhm.
all the water. And so we're right now just kind of talking about what kind of things we can do to support the work, to educate people about the work in Mombasa, the problems and issues in the connection to Seattle, because Seattle has similar issues for people of African descent. So that's really right now just kind of the beginning stages of just having conversations. I'm going to be talking to that director even more. So we're actually talking about a program possibly to help African women entrepreneurs get seed money for their businesses. That's something that the director of the Mombasa Seattle Sister Cities was working on, and that's something we're talking about supporting her initiative for that. So yeah, that's right now just kind of the beginning stages and figuring out what we can do together.
Oh man, that's exciting. So we are going to take a commercial break. We are going to pause. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And we are on Rainier Avenue Radio. This is our Earth Deserves More Than a Day programming. And I'm Rebecca Rosado with Front and Center.
Would you like to see when your favorite Rainier Avenue Radio show comes on? Check out our show schedule, updated weekly at rainieravenueradio.world. Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Tune in to Real Estate and Money every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3 here on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts Violetta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard with Guaranteed Rate Affinity. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's Real Estate and Money.
I'm Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And back in my day, when we wanted to hear the radio, we had to stick a couple of coat hangers on Grandpa's head so his cavity fillings could pick up an AM station. But it's the 21st century now, so whenever I want to hear Rainier Avenue Radio.world, I listen to it on the brand new Rainier Avenue Radio app on my Android or iPhone. Download it for free at the Google Play Store or the iPhone App Store. The Rainier Avenue Radio.world app. Hey, this is Paul Pearson. I've hosted the R&B show Star Time since the very beginning of Rainier Avenue Radio, and after years of featuring tracks from the 50s through the 80s, Star Time now plays R&B and hip-hop from the 1990s as well. A whole half-century of soul, funk, hip-hop, and more on Star Time, Wednesdays at 2 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Did you know that there's an updated COVID-19 booster that protects you even more than the original vaccines? Even if you got the first vaccinations, now it's time to get this new updated booster shot. It's especially important for adults 50 and over and people with a compromised immune system. Even though you may not hear about people catching COVID as often, each week in King County, some people even end up in the hospital because of it. So check with your loved ones and make sure they've gotten an updated booster. For more information on where to get a COVID vaccine, including free vaccination resources, visit kingcounty.gov/vaccines. kingcounty.gov/vaccines.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We are with Yalonda Sinde, at Rainier Avenue Radio. We are broadcasting from the Columbia City Theater, the historic Columbia City Theater. And my guest today is Yalonda Sinde from Global African Community Initiative. She is part of this week-long event that we are having here talking about Earth Deserves More Than a Day. And we are talking about more than just youth participation, but the power of community and the connection between Yolanda's work in Kenya and Seattle. So we only have a couple minutes left, and I do know that I asked you a question. What your 2-minute elevator speech is. I don't know if you're quite ready yet. Let me know. But we definitely will get that 2-minute elevator speech of what people should know and what they should, if you wanted anybody to know anything about environmental justice and why it is important, what that 2 minutes would look like from Yolanda.
Well, I would say, first of all, that we're all impacted by environmental injustice in one way, shape, or form. But some people are impacted more, and you have tremendous power, whether you realize it or not, to make change happen. There's so much you can do, even like spreading the word, educating yourself, because we owe it to future generations to do the best that we can to create a clean and safe environment, because we also believe in doing things for 7 generations ahead. Every generation that makes improvements makes our lives better and the lives of future generations better. So I would encourage people to not just think about today, but think about tomorrow. And that's what I would say in my 2 minutes, is that whatever you do, don't think about just today, think about tomorrow. Think about the people who are not yet here and the legacy and the footprint that you're leaving. And like I said, everything, every little bit counts. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a big leader in the front with a megaphone. There are a lot of people that lead and do amazing work that are not at the forefront. That's not the only definition of leadership. So don't be afraid of stepping outside your comfort zone and being with people that are different from you and sharing your thoughts and opinions on things, because you are powerful. Whether you believe it or not, you're very powerful.
That is an amazing 2-minute speech. Thank you.
Was
Thank
it real
you for
2
that.
minutes? I hope I didn't go over.
No, it wasn't
Some
2
people
minutes.
do 2 minutes.
We're just calling her 2
Was it
minutes.
okay?
You can talk forever. I'm fine with that.
I was sitting here going, oh, I hope it
That's
didn't
fine.
was really 2 minutes. I was trying to time it.
No,
Well,
no, no,
good. That
no.
felt good. Good. I hope I inspired that person in that 2 minutes.
Well, you inspired me, so I'm good.
Thank
I'm good.
you. Yay. That's what I want. That's what I want. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I just get inspired every day. I like you said, the joining front and center just to really be in community with people that are working or like-minded people and working along the same topics and yeah, that's why I'm here and I am so excited and I am inspired every day by people that are giving me similar those 2-minute speeches and and the actions of all of the people and working in South Seattle, working across Washington State. Yeah, I get to learn and see and grow and by watching and listening, and so thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I know that we only have a couple more minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that we covered all of the topics that you wanted to talk about, because this is your show. This is definitely about your long history, right, of work in Seattle, and I wanted to make sure that people know that the connections, and we talked about how they can get involved. But what would you do if we had all of the resources, if we had all of the resources that we needed to make that change, what would your next step be to work on a better community?
I think the next step would be to make sure we have enough people in place to do the work. and that we mobilize youth. That would be the first thing I would do, because they're going to be continuing that work. So I would invest there. I would start with them and giving them the tools they need to lead.
You said something key is have all the people in place. So what does that look like? Being in the right place. Can you expand on that?
Oh, okay. So the resources, so for people to connect, because for us to really build a coalition, it's going to take communication, and we need resources to do that. It takes resources to have a program, to connect through a Zoom call. We need to have better technology, because one of the challenges in communicating from Mombasa is really sketchy Wi-Fi sometimes. Sometimes you'll be going on a call and it'll just go dead, because the Wi-Fi is not real secure. So investing in the ability to communicate across the globe would be the first move, so that we can really build power that way. Because a lot of people are surprised to know there are some communities that don't even have access to the internet. Like, there's still communities like that here. And so how can you build a movement with people that can't talk to you, or that you can't see and talk to? So that would, to me, would be the first step, is work on communication, so that we can, because you'd be surprised at the genius that we're finding when we go into these communities, like the, young people that are just have amazing abilities, but they just don't have the resources to really expand, on their knowledge and really grow. And so that would be the first move, is to figure out how we can build our community globally through technology, because that's what we're about. We're about not just working on local issues, but how do we connect everything, connect the dots? How is Seattle's climate justice initiative? How is it similar to Mombasa's or any other, parts of the globe? What can we do together to support each other? So that would be the first thing, just because there's power in numbers. I would focus on our communication.
How do we nurture the next leaders that you're talking about?
Listening, and providing them the support and mentorship, because it's very difficult work doing organizing in this day and age. And so giving them, just learning from each other, because I also believe that just because someone's younger doesn't mean I can't learn from them. Like, there's a lot of things that young people know. Like, the world is completely different for them. Like, when I was going to school, I didn't worry about someone coming in with a gun to shoot me. This is a reality they live with every day going to school. So it's like, they're a whole different breed. It's like, so people have to understand the world's way different. So they're going to be different, and so we have to understand that and give them a chance, and support them, but also learn from them. What's their reality like, and what can we do to support you? What resources can we give you to help you in your leadership, and help you continue this fight?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that we are ending a little bit. I want to make sure that we know what is important in the Seattle community. I know we talked about some of the work in Kenya, but let's talk about what is the most important right now for the Seattle communities that you serve.
I think because we work on more, African communities, the lack of community is a problem, that we're so spread out all over King County. There really is no one Black community. So trying to do outreach and education is challenging, because we're all over Kent, Federal Way, Renton, Seattle, Skyway. Some people are still in the Central District. So figuring out ways that we can kind of build bridges between all those communities, and find a central place that people can really get information and be heard is one of the biggest challenges. It really is, because it requires organizers in all those different areas. And so that's why I mean, like, having people on the ground, like having the resource to have staff that can do the work, because it's hard, to really make an impact when you're just all volunteer. You need, like, actual people, who have a paid position to do the work. That's their day job, is that they're making calls, they're making arrangements for events. They're going and lobbying in Olympia, you know. So I think the policy work and the community building work are the two biggest things in Seattle that we want to work on even more when we have more capacity. Because right now we're all volunteer too, and
Hmm.
so we're just limited because we all work full time jobs, and so we're limited by what we can do. But we still been doing amazing stuff after work, weekends, you know, during our
Hmm.
breaks from work. Um, so that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and
It's
I know that that I mean that's important, right? Is connecting communities, not just the ones that you work in, but connecting communities, basically Black communities all across Washington State.
Mhm.
And that's definitely important. And I know that you've done a little bit of work with you've done a little bit of work with Africa Town. You've done a little bit of work with everybody, basically.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Like
what
I
do you
really, yeah, that's true. I thought about that. A lot of groups that
Yeah,
work on that list. I'm
with
like, whoa, I've worked
everybody.
with them. Uh-huh.
I've asked around.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know,
So I
go way
wanna
back.
I wanna end with joy, right? So we know what we need to do. We talked about what we need to do. We talked about what we're lacking, but let's talk about let's talk about the joy. Let's focus on what do you see out there that just brings you joy, that is happening in our communities? What do you see out there, whether it's with climate change, whether it's just with safety, anything? What brings you joy, or what do you see in our community that brings you joy?
Victories. The victories bring me joy. Whenever I open up one of the newsletters, Front and Center, and I see they got a policy initiative passed, I see more coalition members. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. The wins just keep me going. They, you know, because I'm like, I know we can do this. We can make change happen. We can make it everything better. It's just gonna take time, you know. And so whenever I see positive change happening in these different communities and different organizations, I'm just like, yes, I'm cheering for people. They don't know, but I'm like, yes, yeah, you go, you
You
guys
did
got
it. You
this, yes, you know. So,
did it.
and I'm like psyched to see a youth takeover. I wouldn't say a word, you know, as an adult. I would be listening. I'm not taking up 1 ounce of space from them, you know, that this is their time. So that is inspiring, you know. I'm like, yes, take it over, you know, speak your voices out, build power. We need you. So all of that brings joy. I just love it. There's so many positive things happening every day, and in the midst of all these problems in the world, there's people are winning, you know. So that keeps me going.
Ah, well, on that note, we're gonna end in the joy, right? We're gonna end, and
Yes.
I definitely, I tip my hat to you. You are just wonderful, and I thank you so much for taking time to talk to me and talk to the people out there. And again, we have a week long Earth Deserves More Than a Day. You'll be able to hear this broadcast again. You can find it on YouTube, Rainier Avenue Radio, frontandcenter.org. And yes, yes, let's just celebrate each other and let's just end on that moment of joy. Thank you, Yalonda Sinde from Global African Community Initiative. Thank you, Rainier Avenue Radio. And I'm Rebecca from Front and Center, signing off and saying thank you all for listening.
Thank you.